My name is Odell Dorr, and I'm 34 years old. Ellie turned 10 on a Tuesday. Double digits. She'd been counting down since summer, crossing days off the calendar like each one was a small victory. She talked about it the way kids talk about Christmas, wide-eyed, hopeful, certain something special was waiting on the other side of sleep. The night before her birthday, I stayed up past midnight blowing up balloons. 30 of them. Pink, purple, silver. I taped them to the ceiling with the cheapest tape I could find, already knowing it wouldn't hold. Gravity always wins eventually. By morning, half the balloons were drooping like tired thoughts. Ellie didn't care. She burst out of her room screaming, "I'm 10!" Hair wild, socks mismatched, running straight into my arms so hard I almost dropped the pancakes. She hugged me with her whole body, like if she let go, the moment might disappear. There was no big party, no crowd, no music blasting through the house. Just us, like always. But I made it feel like something anyway. Confetti scattered across the kitchen table, streamers taped crookedly above the cabinets. I'd drawn up a scavenger hunt by hand, little clues leading her from the couch to the hallway to the laundry room, ending in the garage. That's where the bike was, a pink cruiser with a white basket, streamers fluttering from the handlebars. A bell so loud and cheerful it felt impossible not to smile. Ellie froze when she saw it. Then she cried. Not loud crying, quiet crying. The kind that catches in your throat and makes you press your hand to your mouth because you don't know what to do with the feeling. She wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "You did all this for me?" I nodded, because if I spoke, my voice would have cracked. She rang the bell non-stop for the next hour. Ellie even made party hats. I'm not joking. She cut glitter paper at the table, glued on stickers, and carefully wrote names in her crooked handwriting. Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt Bree, Mom. She taped toothpicks to the tops so they'd stand up, then lined them across the table like assigned seats. She looked at them with absolute confidence. "Do you think they'll get here before cake?" she asked, like it was only a matter of timing. I smiled and said, "Maybe." I checked my phone every 10 minutes, pretending I wasn't. Nothing. No texts, no calls, no reactions in the family group chat. I'd posted pictures. Ellie opening presents, Ellie ringing the bike bell, Ellie making a ridiculous face with frosting on her nose. Not even a thumbs up. Not even from Bree, who normally reacted to everything I posted like it was a job requirement. By noon, I stopped checking. We had lunch. Ellie chalked a giant happy birthday to me on the sidewalk, letters so big they ran off the concrete. When it was time for cake, she hesitated. "Should we wait a little longer?" she asked. I said no. We lit the candles anyway. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Not a call, a message, in the family group chat. From my dad. Didn't feel like babysitting a problem child. The words sat there, flat and casual, like he'd commented on the weather. I didn't ask what he meant. I knew. They'd always labeled Ellie too much, too loud, too energetic, too curious. She didn't sit quietly like Bree's kids. She asked questions. She talked nonstop about planets and bugs and rocks she found in the driveway. I used to think they just didn't understand her. Now I realize they never tried. I typed back before I could second-guess myself. Perfect, because your retirement fund just lost its sponsor. And I meant it. For 5 years, I'd been sending them money every single month. Rent, utilities, prescriptions, groceries, emergency expenses that somehow never stopped being emergencies. My mom always said they wouldn't make it without me. I believed her. They laughed it off. Bree sent a laughing emoji. My dad said I was being dramatic. My mom wrote, "Don't be like this, Odell. We just needed a break." No apology, not one word about Ellie. Later that afternoon, I opened Instagram, not because I suspected anything, just muscle memory. I tapped through stories. That's when I saw it. A boomerang of Bri at the airport, drink in hand, then a group photo. My parents, Bree, her kids, even Aunt Mara, all standing under a massive Welcome to Miami mural, smiling like they'd just won something. Palm trees, beach chairs, lobster tails, margaritas. Caption, family trip, first time all together in years. They were already there, Ellie's 10th birthday, and they'd flown out that morning without telling me. I left one comment under Bree's story. "So you all left town today?" No one replied. 9 days passed. Then everything exploded. I woke up to 22 messages, missed calls, voicemails. The family group chat was on fire. My dad started it. "Odell, please, can we talk?" Then another message. Then 3 missed calls. Then a voicemail. My mom followed. Her messages were longer, softer, guiltier. She wrote about misunderstandings, about groceries getting expensive, about how retirement hadn't gone the way they planned. Not one actual apology, not one mention of Ellie. What struck me most was how fast the tone changed. 9 days ago, I was dramatic. Now, they were desperate. I stood in my kitchen, coffee cooling in my hand, staring at my phone while message after message came in. For the first time in years, I didn't rush to explain myself. I didn't scramble to smooth things over. I just stopped. The messages didn't stop after that morning. They multiplied. My dad called 3 more times before noon. I let the phone ring until it went quiet, then vibrated again. My mom sent paragraphs, long ones, the kind that look thoughtful until you realize they never quite land anywhere real. We didn't mean it like that. You know your father speaks without thinking sometimes. The trip was already booked months ago. Things have just been hard lately. Hard. That word did a lot of heavy lifting for them. I didn't respond. Not out of strategy, not to punish anyone. I simply didn't have anything left to give. No explanations, no emotional labor, no soothing words to wrap around their behavior so it hurt less. I poured Ellie a bowl of cereal and watched her hum to herself while she ate, completely unaware that the people who were supposed to love her most had dismissed her existence with a single sentence. After breakfast, I muted the family group chat. The silence felt strange at first, like walking into a room where a fan had been running nonstop and suddenly wasn't. My ears rang, my chest felt tight. I kept expecting a rush of guilt to knock me over. It didn't. Instead, I took Ellie out for ice cream in the middle of a school day. She chose bubblegum with sprinkles and told the cashier it was still her birthday week. He laughed and gave her an extra scoop. She skipped back to the table, swinging her legs, talking about how double digits felt older, but also kind of the same. She had a way of making everything lighter without trying. That night, after she fell asleep with her stuffed bear tucked under her chin, I finally listened to the voicemails. My dad sounded exhausted, worn down. He said things had been stressful, that he hadn't meant what he said about Ellie, that he was overwhelmed and the words had come out wrong. There was a pause. Then he said it. "We were counting on you this month. The deposit didn't come through on Friday. Can you help us again?" My mom's voicemail was shakier. She said she didn't realize I was still so sensitive, that the Miami trip was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, that Bree had organized everything and insisted they go. She ended with, "You know we love you, right? Even when we don't say it." I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in my hand, listening to the quiet after her voice disappeared. It wasn't about what they said. It was about what they never did. The next morning, Bri texted me directly. She said I was being unnecessarily cold, that our parents were older now, that I knew how hard things had been for them. She said cutting them off financially without warning was cruel. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just replied, I didn't cut them off without warning. They warned me. She left me on red. 2 days later, my dad messaged again. "Please call me. Just 5 minutes." I ignored it. I wasn't trying to make a point. I was just living, something I hadn't done without guilt in years. That Saturday, Ellie asked if we could take a little trip. "Like just us?" she asked, hopeful but cautious, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to want things. I opened my laptop and let her choose. She picked a small cabin by a lake, paddle boats, a fire pit, hammocks strung between trees. I booked it immediately, using the money I usually sent for my mom's prescriptions. There was a brief ache in my chest. Then it passed. The morning we left, Bri posted a photo on Facebook. It was my parents' fridge, mostly empty, a carton of eggs, a bottle of ketchup. The caption read, "This is what happens when you raise ungrateful children." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I closed the app, zipped Ellie's bag, and told her to grab her bear. Let them feel it. Let them sit in the silence they created every time they skipped her recitals, ignored her birthdays, or misspelled her name on Christmas cards. This time I wasn't fixing it. The cabin wasn't fancy, old wood paneling, a screen door that squeaked, mismatched dishes that looked like they came from 5 different yard sales. Ellie thought it was perfect. She ran straight to the dock with her sneakers in one hand and her bear in the other, shouting, "This is the best vacation ever." We tried fishing. She tangled the line so badly I had to cut it 3 times. We burned marshmallows black and ate them anyway. We stayed up late playing board games, laughing until our stomachs hurt. On the second night, we lay under the skylight watching stars. Ellie asked, "Do you think the moon ever gets lonely?" That question stayed with me. The entire trip cost about the same as one of my mom's prescriptions. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. It didn't feel like I was taking something away from someone else to give to Ellie. It felt like it was mine to give, my time, my money, my energy, and hers to receive. When we got home Sunday night, my phone nearly overheated with notifications. Missed calls from my parents, 8 texts from Bree, 2 voicemails, and a brand new group chat titled Family Emergency. I didn't open any of it. I unpacked with Ellie, gave her a warm bath, tucked her into bed. Then I made myself tea and sat on the couch while the phone kept buzzing on the coffee table. I let it happen, like a storm I no longer ran from. Later, I listened to the voicemails. My dad said they were behind on rent, that the fridge was empty, that I was letting things go too far, that I was being emotional. My mom said living on Social Security was harder than I understood. She said the Miami trip wasn't what it looked like. She said they hadn't realized how much Ellie wanted them there. Then she shifted to talking about Bree, how overwhelmed she was. Still no apology. The next morning, I got an email from Ellie's school about a summer enrichment program. Robotics, music, creative writing, swimming. I signed her up for everything. Life didn't explode after that. It narrowed. The noise I'd lived with for years, constant updates, requests, guilt wrapped in concern, fell away, leaving a kind of quiet that felt almost dangerous at first. Like the moment after you step off a moving train and your body still expects motion. Ellie filled the space without trying. She started summer programs the week after school let out. Robotics on Mondays, music on Wednesdays, swimming on Fridays. Every afternoon she came home breathless, talking over herself, explaining how gears worked or how the pool smelled like sunscreen and echoing laughter. She was thriving. I should have known my family wouldn't let that stand. The call came from the school on a Thursday afternoon. A calm voice, professional, careful. Ms. Dorr, we wanted to inform you that someone attempted to pick Ellie up early today. My hand tightened around the phone. They identified themselves as her grandmother, the woman continued. They knew personal details, but Ellie isn't on the pickup list. We didn't release her. The room tilted. I thanked her, hung up, and sat down hard on the couch. My heart was racing so fast it made my ears ring. I drove to the school immediately, signed paperwork, added passwords, locked everything down until it felt airtight. When I picked Ellie up, she ran to me smiling, completely unaware of how close something terrible had come to happening. That night, my mom left a voicemail. She laughed lightly, like I'd misunderstood a joke. Oh, honey, it was just supposed to be a surprise. I didn't think you'd react like this. You're really overreacting. No apology. Just correction. I blocked her number. A week later, a legal letter arrived. Formal, polite, cold. They were attempting to frame my past financial help as evidence of obligation, as proof I had assumed responsibility, as if years of support meant I belonged to them now. I stared at the paper until the words blurred. When I called the lawyer, my voice didn't shake. I am no longer providing support, I said, and I never agreed to. Something shifted when I said it out loud. I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. They weren't asking for help anymore. They were trying to own me. Ellie didn't know any of this. She spent her evenings outside with the telescope I'd bought her, wrapped in a blanket even when it wasn't cold, aiming at the sky with serious concentration. Saturn should be there, she'd say, pointing at nothing in particular, even if we can't see it yet. I liked that about her, the certainty, the belief that things still existed even when they weren't obvious. Bree messaged again. She said I should be the bigger person, that families didn't treat each other this way, that mom and dad were barely sleeping, that everyone felt broken. I blocked her too. I wasn't the glue anymore. The weeks passed. Life settled into a rhythm that felt honest. Library Saturdays, pancakes on Sundays, planning imaginary trips on the living room floor with brochures and sticky notes. I stopped checking my phone, stopped wondering what they were saying about me online, stopped bracing myself for the next demand. Nothing terrible happened to them, just discomfort. The same discomfort I'd been carrying for years. In July, Ellie and I took a trip to Uzi. She walked the trails slowly, stopping to study rocks like museum pieces, holding each one up and asking if it looked important. At one point, she asked if mountains remembered things. I took a photo of her holding a jagged stone like it was treasure. We printed it when we got home and taped it to the fridge next to a postcard we mailed to ourselves. That became our tradition. Proof we were there. The silence from my family lasted until August. That's when Bree showed up at my door unannounced, holding a cardboard box of old books and DVDs. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. She talked fast, too fast, about Ellie, about mom and dad not sleeping, about how the family felt broken. She said I'd made my point, that it was time to stop holding grudges, I'm not holding a grudge, I said calmly. I'm just not participating anymore. She frowned, frustrated. She said I was stubborn, that Ellie was getting spoiled, that it wasn't fair for one child to have so much while the rest of the family struggled. And that's when I understood. She wasn't there as a sister. She was there to negotiate money. Before she left, she said, "It's sad, Odell, destroying a family over one birthday." I handed the box back to her. It wasn't about the birthday, I said. It was about what it revealed. She left without another word. September came quietly. Ellie and I took a train trip just because she wanted to see where the tracks went. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said it had been the best year of her life. I didn't post it. I didn't need to. I used to think cutting people off required certainty. Proof. Some undeniable moment that justified the loss. But when I stopped giving money, access, and explanations, they didn't fall apart. They performed. Guilt replaced love. Control replaced care. That's when I finally understood. They weren't really family. They were people who stayed as long as I gave them something. And Ellie, bright, curious, growing, didn't miss people who never truly saw her. Neither did I. Almost a year passed before I realized how much lighter my life had become. Not happier in some dramatic fireworks way, just quieter, steadier. Like my shoulders had finally dropped after being tense for so long I'd forgotten they were raised. Ellie turned 11 in early spring. There was no waiting that year, no glancing at the door, no checking my phone to see who might still be deciding whether she mattered enough to show up. She planned the day herself, weeks in advance, complete with a planetarium visit, pizza afterward, and a list of questions she wanted to ask the guide about Saturn's rings. "It's perfect already," she said that morning, brushing her hair with fierce concentration, "because it's ours." And it was. No messages came in from my parents, none from Bry. Just silence, broken only by the occasional guilt-soaked posts that drifted across my feed from mutual relatives, vague quotes about family loyalty, about how children forget sacrifices too easily. I stopped reading them. Somewhere along the way, I realized something important when I stopped sending money, explanations, and emotional access. My family didn't collapse. They adjusted their narrative. They were never afraid of losing me. They were afraid of losing what I provided. That understanding didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It didn't shatter me. It settled, heavy but solid, like a truth I could finally stand on. Ellie, meanwhile, was thriving in ways that had nothing to do with spite or revenge. She kept notebooks full of diagrams of solar systems she designed herself. She wrote missions for us every week, small goals like find a new trail or cook something we've never tried. She taped them to the fridge next to our photos and postcards, proof that our world was still expanding. One afternoon, while she was working on a cardboard model of Jupiter, she looked up at me and said, "You know, I don't really miss Grandma and Grandpa." I froze for half a second, careful not to let my reaction steer her. "Why do you think that is?" I asked. She shrugged. "They never really talked to me. They talked around me." That was it. No bitterness, no anger, just clarity. Later that month, I got one last message from Bry. She didn't apologize. She didn't accuse. She just said Mom and Dad were struggling and asked if I'd reconsider helping a little, just until things stabilized. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "I already helped for years," I typed. "I'm done now." Then I blocked her again, this time without hesitation. It wasn't cruelty. It was consistency. Summer came, then fall. Our routines held. Library days, pancake Sundays, long conversations on the couch about things that mattered to Ellie and therefore mattered to me. I used to think boundaries had to be explained, defended, justified. Now I knew better. Boundaries don't ask permission. They just exist. Looking back, it's easy to say it all started with a birthday, with a missed cake, with a cruel message sent too casually. But that's not really true. It started years earlier, every time I paid a bill instead of being present. Every time I swallowed disappointment so someone else could stay comfortable. Every time I told myself this is just how families are. The birthday didn't break us. It exposed us. Ellie and I didn't lose a family. We shed a weight. And in the space it left behind, we built something smaller, quieter, and infinitely stronger. I showed up for my child. I showed up for myself. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was leaving anything behind that mattered.